What is expected of you once you sign a contract of sale? Hi, I'm Sam Powell.
And I'm Jaryd Krause, and we are the hosts of the Property Pals Australia podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be discussing a lot around the whole process on what steps you need to take once you've signed a contract for sale or just before you sign a contract for sale. First step basically is the solicitor having that contract reviewed, what's actually in that, and there's so much, and getting them to provide some feedback and next steps. Also talking about organising and building a pest check, how that can be worked out through the process of the sale as well, and what's involved with that, because there's so much in it. And then also reading through the building and pest check, liaising with the person who has done the building and pest check, having a call if you need, and what's involved and why you need to do this in the right way when going through the deal.
Yeah, and then we also jump into, for those that are subject to finance, looking at what to expect in order to get your finance to go unconditional. We also touch base on the pre-settlement inspections and why they're important to conduct. And then looking at handover, so the property becomes yours. And we also throw a few relatable stories and a few examples of some deals we've done. So there's hopefully you get a lot out of it. But before we get stuck in the episode, I just wanted to tell you that this podcast is not the only way that we do help people. And we can do it for free, obviously, through the podcast and through our resources. We have a really great resource on our website, which is teaching you how to maximize your borrowing capacity. It's a mini course that we put together. So check it out and head to propertypals.au/resources and use this tool to buy a superior asset and achieve a better return on investment. That's what we're all about, trying to make good property decisions. So yeah, hope you enjoy the episode and see you on the inside.
Welcome to Property Pals, the podcast where we share everything around how to build a property portfolio, from researching areas, financing, structuring, buying, selling, and reinvesting to live a life of financial independence. As a disclaimer, any information shared by myself, Jaryd, Sam, and the Property Pals team is strictly general and should not be taken as constituting professional advice. You should consider seeking independent legal, financial, and taxation advice from a qualified professional. What to expect once you have put a contract in place and you're like, damn, just bought a property. First and foremost,
you haven't just bought it.
Well,
you've done the hard yards to get to offer an acceptance.
Yes, hopefully you got some good negotiation done and you found a great deal and you've got a contract in place. Congratulations if that's the place. Now there's more work.
There's definitely, and there's a lot of emotions at this point too.
Yeah, just tell me about that.
Well, let's sort of cover off. So, I'll go an example first. So there's the time we under contract. There's a number of things that need to get ticked off the list before you actually go unconditional and settle on the property.
Correct, because you just bought a property, sorry, and you're just like, oh wow, what do I do now?
Yeah, you're like, and then you have, as I said in the last podcast, people get buyer remorse. They might freak out. They might be unsure whether, like I was anyway, like, all I know, I'm finance approved, but like, is this going to go through? And then your broker sits there and says, it'll be fine, but we won't fully know until we actually get that unconditional finance from the bank.
Like, what?
And you're waiting for this letter from the bank to say, we now have allowed you to borrow $500,000 and be in debt to us.
Yeah.
So
I remember my first deal, my first property, I had no idea what happens after you purchase, because like, what do you do? Like, I was like, all right, so I need a solicitor. You recommended me a solicitor. The agent, buyer's agent I was using recommended a solicitor. How do I choose a solicitor? I mean, I guess we'll get a solicitor on. We'll talk about all of these things that we're going to cover in bullet points today. We'll talk about them more in depth in following episodes to this.
These are really the foundations.
These are the foundations.
So we want to get these nuggets of gold and always refer back to before we start getting, I guess, guests on the podcast. So
yeah, correct. And reach out to us if you need any help with any of these things as well. So first and foremost, you've got the contract for sale that you've signed it.
Offer and acceptance.
Offers, yeah.
This is yours. How exciting.
How exciting. Congrats, guys.
Yeah.
That's sick.
So,
what do you do?
well,
you said you got an example, so maybe run through one.
Well, the first thing that it depends on where you're at in that stage. Some people like to get the contracts reviewed by the solicitors prior to going under contract.
Yeah.
So what that really is get a blank contract, you put it in front of your solicitor, and they look over it and say, look, there's no clauses in there that's going to stuff you around, go for it. And then once you get it fully under contract, then we'll go through and we'll do all our title searches and our research on the back end, making sure that there's no sort of hidden items that could be of a concern. An example would be if you're going through a unit, they've got strata reports. You might read through it and it might make sense, but you don't see them every day. So there's going through the meeting minutes in a strata report to understand what have they been talking about, what works are required on that complex. Mm-hmm. There might be with units, and that's why as an investment vehicle I'm not a big fan of, because there's more maintenance involved, there's less scarcity, but also there are special levies that can be hit to the owners on top of the rates that you pay every single month. So you got the body corporate and the strata expenses, but then they might have a special levy that says, hey, look, we now have a leaking issue in the roof and we didn't account for this. We need $500,000 to fix this. It's not in our budget. Between all 10 of us in this unit, that's $50,000 each. Mm-hmm. We can get it done. Where's your 50 grand?
Was I talking to you about an example? Were you telling me about it, or somebody else was telling me about it, that they had to pay, the unit block had to pay $100,000 extra each on some changes they needed to make to their unit block. I think it was in my suburb. But I want to get back to, in line with what we're talking about, a solicitor, they can review the contract prior, so they can review a blank contract, or they can review a contract to sale that you have signed. But what, for me, each one that I've got it reviewed after a contract to sale has been signed. So what percentage of people do go and ask for a blank contract and get it reviewed first? And that can typically slow the deal down as well, right? You could...
majority of people, you want to get it looked over by a solicitor. Like for your example, it was a weekend, the solicitors weren't working.
That was the last one anyway.
Yeah.
The other one, I just went ahead with it.
And then you put clauses in there saying, that, and this is a key clause to use if agents do put pressure or you want to move fast, is that it is subject to a solicitor's review over the whole contract, because the solicitor could come back and say, wow, this has got major issues, and then you can pull out and there's no penalty.
So what percentage of people get a contract review prior to the contract of sale being signed?
Well, the way we run our business would be we get the offer and acceptance verbally, and then we pass through their the entity name they're purchasing in and their solicitor details, and then it gets sent to the solicitor to review. And then when it's all ticked off, then it gets signed from the buyer. So that's the process we run. That way, it's covering them, and the solicitor's getting their view over it. So that's majority of the time. But percentage-wise, maybe like 80-20. We do ones where they don't get reviewed by a solicitor, but there's a clause in place to cover your back end.
Exit if you need.
Because you don't want to be signing stuff, and I know we went through this conversation too, like you don't want to be signing stuff that you don't know what you're signing.
Yeah.
And you don't have to know what's signing. Your solicitor needs to know that stuff. That's what you're paying them for. So you can get a contract review. It's usually either free with solicitor or conveyancer, or maybe a couple $100 if you don't go through. But if you do go through with the purchase, then that
it gets taken off.
Yeah.
Solicitor and conveyancer. Is a solicitor conveyancer as well? From what I know, a solicitor is a bit more fancy.
They're more educated. They got more, I guess, accolades and experience and qualification under their belt. But generally, you'll be working with a conveyancer, and if it's if a solicitor is doing it, it's generally their. We'll get a solicitor on, but
we will.
The way that I've seen it in the past is they're support team does all the due diligence checks, and they just do a quick little review before sending it back to you.
Yeah.
But a conveyancer, they specialise in property contract law, so there's often some conveyancers are more experienced than your solicitors, but they kind of all mash in between each other, in my opinion anyway. It might be wrong, but there could be solicitors out there saying, this guy's a dickhead, he doesn't know what he's talking about, but that's not my wheelhouse.
It's not what you paid to do, and that's totally okay.
Yeah, that's my perception of it over 15 years of property. So
yeah, I mean, you know what you're talking about. Like, guys, we do want to get these different solicitors, conveyancers, and all the people that we're going to talk about on as guests each individually. But a lot of you guys listening, you might have dealt with a solicitor, a conveyancer, or some of the other people that we're going to talk about in terms that we use to go through the settlement process. If you have somebody that you do want us to interview that you think was very knowledgeable and very good, recommend them to us. And
because we are on the hunt for good quality professionals.
That's all we do is we know who we want to use. If we go and buy a property tomorrow, we know who we're going to use. But we want to test who we're using against other people to make sure our team gets better and better and better and better as we go through, as we go through our journey and our
as we scale
portfolio.
Too, people can't take on too much work. That's kind of where we're at the moment, where you can get like really great referrals, but there's only so many hours in a day for these professionals to help other people. So we're always looking for new talent,
better talent, and then we can recommend better people for you guys as well. So all right. So
sidetrack.
Solicitor, conveyancer, you get that done. Then,
it depends on your offer. So let's run down that. If you have an unconditional offer, which means it's not subject to finance or building and pest, you're pretty much you're done.
You have to buy it.
You're settling regardless.
Yeah. Even if you can't get finance, and then you get a big old fee if you can't pay for it, right?
A massive penalty that.
What are we looking at?
If you pull out, I mean
it's different in different states.
Yeah, but generally, if you pull out, you can get sued for, say, damages. So if you paid $1.5 million for it, and then you pulled out, and then you stuffed them around, they've gone and sold that property. After you've stuffed them around for 1.4, they can sue you for $100,000,
possibly,
or any expenses.
As an example, that's a total example and very general. We're not lawyers, but
and there's just only go unconditional offers if you know that your finance is going to get pushed through, and you either are a builder, so you don't need a building and pest, or the property is structurally sound, you've got a lot of confidence in it, or you've done the building and pest upfront.
Would you ever sign it and go unconditional without finance approval if you were going for finance, and knowing that you can get finance, but actually having the finance?
If you haven't had the conversation with your broker, I'd say you're a bit of a dum-dum.
Yeah. Dumb.
No, you don't just go, I want to buy a property, I'll put an offer in it, whatever, unconditional. You could get out of it by pleading ignorance and saying that I'm not educated, I'm not used to this. But that's a whole legal battle you just don't want to fight in your life.
Correct.
So if you were going down the building and pest and the finance route, the next step is you've got to organise your building and pest inspector to go in. Generally, they're maybe a 7 or a 14-day building and pest clause, which means you have to get it done within that time period. So you need to have a good tip is know who you're going to use before. Yeah. And then organise them, and they're getting
before you put a contract for sale in place.
Yeah.
Typically, it's smart to know what solicitor you want to use before you put a contract for sale in place, and your building and pest as well.
And give them a heads up, say, hey, this is what I'm doing. So it's not like, oh, hey,
John.
Betty Lou, haven't spoken to you for 6 years. I just bought a property and I need you to actually get this through within the next 2 days, because otherwise I'm going to lose the deal.
Yeah.
Imagine if someone called you in your profession and was like, I need this really done now. You'd be like,
come on, mate.
Give me a break. Well, I would be anyway.
Or pay me an extra, 5-10 grand.
Yeah. You want that? No worries.
Fast track it.
I'll have to
put all my clients on hold. Yeah.
I'm rambling again, but do that. Building and pest, organise it. because you want to also, you need the time to get the building and pest back.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got that clause in there, that means you can pull out of the deal within whatever days you state.
Say it's a 14-day building and pest, and there's something wrong that you're like, whoa, the slab is going to be split in half soon because of
subsidence.
Cracking
in the bricks.
You can pull out.
But those days are for you to not only get the building and pest done, get the report back, read the report, and then go back to them with, yes, I'm happy to go ahead, or no, based on this building and pest, and then you renegotiate, your terms, or even the price. So, example of property I bought where it needed restumping, and we negotiated $30,000 off the contract price that we originally had to restump it, and that was completely fine. You give them the option to say you do it, or we do it. We've got quotes, and that's where it starts coming in that grey area where a lot of people that because they're not in it every day, they might see that and go, whoa,
just jump out of the deal completely, versus like, hey, this is a bit of an opportunity to save a bit of money here.
Yeah, because you get quotes, something is range between, like, the whole probably wasn't required restumping, but it was. We got quotes between $20,000 and $25,000. We reduced the price by $30,000, so we'll net ahead by $5,000 to $10,000 on that one. So it worked out quite well, but that's also a different client, different play. We're doing a subdivision play, going buy, retain, subdivide off, and then you can either look to knock down that property in the next 10 years and build a new one. There's a whole reasons why you go certain strategies, and why you accept certain issues with buildings.
And even in the most basic case, on my WA property, there was something in the roof that needed to be fixed, and it's going to cost about $4,000. We're like, look, do you want to? You guys can do it, or we'll do it. But whatever way, we're dropping 4K or whatever it is off the price, or we'll settle at the same price if you guys get it done prior to settlement. And if we need to extend settlement, that's totally okay by us. We don't need to rush the deal. We just want to buy a good deal with those issues resolved, right?
Yeah, and your building pest inspector, they're fully, like, they're third party. They get paid to do the report, and they don't care if you buy it or not.
Yeah,
and they're really good.
So good. I think that's so important how it's set up that way.
Yeah, so call them and don't just read the report and be left wondering what if.
If you don't understand it, you need to understand it. It's like anything that you're doing your due diligence on. You should prove that it's a bad investment. If you can't, then you must buy. That's my philosophy. And if there's something about that deal, that property that you don't understand, that's a risk because you don't understand it.
Ignorance. Yes.
Yeah. So understand it.
Yeah. That's
you pay them $500 to $1,000. What's a phone call for 30 minutes to understand something?
But most of them do expect the phone call.
Yeah.
They won't obviously invite into their life, but it's always good to just call them, understand it, and also refer, like, get an idea on, what would that cost to fix?
Yeah.
Do you have...
Or who should I get a quote from to get that fixed?
Yeah, and they all have referral networks because that's how they work. That's how most of business in Australia, in my opinion, works. Is just
everywhere.
Just talking and knowing good people to deal with, and then you just refer each other good business. So.
Yeah. You're crazy not to, because those building and pest inspectors that do this every day, they know who's good and who's not good, and they're going to refer people to the best people that they know. It's just like when we refer people to you guys, they're the best, and they're people that we would use on our own properties and our own team, because we know so many different people in the industry.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you're best off trusting that building and pest inspector on where you're going to go away and get that quote, because they're going to be the best roofer in that area.
Generally, I say get 2 to 3 quotes, 3 ideally, and that's with most things.
Stack them up against each other.
Yeah, and then you can also play them off each other if you want to go down that path.
Yeah.
But it's not really playing it off and say, hey, XYZ is doing it for this much, and I prefer to use you. And it's not the biggest thing in business and property that I've come across is never go the cheapest route.
Yes.
because then you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. I believe wholeheartedly in that expression. So
It costs money to fix. It costs you more money in the long run to fix what wasn't done correctly.
yes, that's a good point.
I have been burnt many times
not
by
all-
going cheap.
Not all the time, yeah, but I guess majority. Oh, mate, I got this. Yeah,
Tell us.
So I got one of my investment properties which is actually in Kirra in Queensland, on the beach. It's mate, I got a handyman to go out there, and because we're experiencing a massive trade shortage at the moment, and also that is going to be a bigger issue in the future. Labour shortages for the population growth that Australia is experiencing. Hence why I'm really positive on property price growth over the long term. Our issue is going to be with labour. So if you are thinking about doing trade works, like at the moment, when COVID, the lockdown, the supply of materials, supply of trades very scarce, so the cost of everything went up. And I was in this situation where it was just my cupboard door. There was like a corner cupboard door in the kitchen. It had come off, and it just required to be put back on. And I was like, all right. I wasn't going to go around and do it. I'm not a handyman, even though I know how to use a drill. I knew what to do. I even explained, what strip hinge you needed to use.
You should have called Brizzo.
Yeah, but he's up in Brisbane, isn't he?
So we got a mate who, his name's Ryan, and we call him Brizzo because he's from Brisbane.
Yeah, we're very unique now.
He would have hated a call. Fix the cupboard for me, please.
Oh, yeah, but then he's got to drive down from Brisbane, charge me a daily rate. I'm all for mates they're good to use, but I use
if it's right for them and it's good for them, great. If not, find somebody else, right?
But pay full freight, pay what people
exactly.
Because it's like, well, I can do this for you, but I'm actually
the worst thing you could do, I think, is to underpay your friend.
Well, yes, there's the favours and everything, but I mean, it gets to a stage where it's like, if you do this favour for me, then you're reducing your take-home pay, so you're essentially paying to do the job for me.
Yeah.
And I guess we're at that stage now where
we're in a unique position.
We don't need to do that.
Yeah.
But when you're younger, you're hustling, you're trying to get favours for everyone.
Yeah. So
anyway,
this you got a handyman.
Yeah, you went round there,
put it on backwards or something.
No, the dickhead. He instead of using a strip hinge, people probably don't know what that is, but anyway, he's basically just screwed through the front of the chipboard and the laminate. So now I've got these two big screw holes, actually 4 screw holes on each of the hinges coming out in the kitchen. So you look at it, you walk in, you're like, wow. Wow, it's, I don't know, I don't want to throw up. The place is, it's a 3-bedroom place near the beach. It's quite nice, and he's just going to ruin my kitchen. And obviously, I'm a bit pedantic about that. The tenants didn't mind, but at the same time, I look at that and go, wow, that's paying peanuts for getting monkeys. And for that stage, I just couldn't find any trades to actually go in and do it. And my property manager had a last-minute stab, and I learned a good lesson. So sharing, still bitter about
your property manager. So Spinksy gave it a go.
Oh yeah.
So we got a friend. Our friend manages that property, right?
Yeah. It was
So he's.
I can't recall in his defence whether it was me that put it forward or whether it was him that put it forward. I put one person forward, but anyway. Another tip on this one is, don't pay the trades until you've seen proof of work, and tell your property managers to not do it as well. So the fee, the tenant said that it had been fixed, so the property manager paid it. I then looked at proof of work and the photos and lost my marbles because I can't believe I paid some dude to ruin my kitchen. Yeah. So not ruin, but just one panel, which I'm going to have to go back and fix up. But anyway, it's only a couple $100 max.
Yeah, that's factored into your maintenance. But anyway,
if you're listening to this, handyman, talking about you,
you know who you are.
Ruin my kitchen,
Kira. Do you remember? I got a funny story that I want to share with everybody. It's hilarious because you bought that property, and I was with my previous partner, Danny,
Oh, yeah.
And we drove past that property, and there was a for sale sign out the front that had the sold sticker on it.
Yeah,
Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And what we did, I was like, oh, you know what we should do is we should get a photo of us, a selfie of us out the front of the property with the property sign and the sold sticker on it, and take a photo. And we just did it for you and Kayla, your partner, and as a joke, of like, oh look, we just bought this property, and I put it on Facebook straight away, and everybody thought I just bought this property.
Yeah,
and I felt so bad. I felt so guilty. I was like, I just put a photo up with no description on Facebook, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, Jaryd bought his first property, or he bought a property. Congratulations!" But they just led to the assumption that it was mine. But I just took a photo of a sign.
Well, you would assume that, wouldn't you?
You would.
It puts a random photo of themselves. But
it was just for lols. But
I've never done that actually. I've never taken a photo in front of a property I bought for myself.
Yeah, or people could do it in front of any property sign with any properties.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sharky people are like, I bought this property, and they just walk past someone
and
else's
you bought
sign.
20 properties in 1 month with all these different signs.
I've just sold another one. I bought another one. Yeah.
Real estate agents could do that, like with all the ones they've sold.
Oh, you look at some of their Instagrams and their sales campaigns, and it's like recently sold, and you're like, you didn't sell that. But they're just giving you, in their mind, they're giving you market feedback for their suburb. Like, this sub probably sold for this. But the way that it's delivered looks like they've sold it.
Yes.
When you dig further in, you're like,
somebody else.
Anyway, that's to each their own.
Some lols on the pod. Let's get back to it. So you solicitor, building and pest. Then once you got your building and pest basically sorted, and that's, you would call, quote unquote, unconditional building and pest.
Yes, and then you move on, and if you've got a finance clause, often,
first thing you want to do with your finance though is try and get your finance sorted ASAP as soon as you sign the contract.
Well, you've got your pre-approval in place. You shouldn't be going under contract without pre-approval. So
yes.
Your broker's aware. If you're within that 90-day period is very important.
Yes.
But then your finance terms and conditions generally run, say, 21 days to 30 days. And that's also fluctuating. So during COVID, after COVID, there was the big ramp up, and you're laughing about this because I kind of did a bit of a interesting play from a negotiation standpoint, because an agent was pushing me, and I was like, well, if you want to get this done,
this is the deal. This is the deal that we just went through. Together.
Yeah. Oh, it was months ago.
It was months ago. Yeah.
But now, I ended up going, well, okay, that's fine. And I think I put a 14-day finance on it.
Yeah, he put 14-day finance clause, and I sent it on the weekend to my broker, and my broker almost just said, stuff you, mate, like, you go find another broker. Basically, he's just like, who the hell would do this? And it was like at the end of the year, and banks are about to shut down, and he's like, you just...
Yeah, it was my reasoning behind that was it painted a really nice picture, because the seller wanted something to happen before Christmas, and this is not generally what happens. I just was like, well, let's go in 14 days. He had his pre-approval in place,
and it worked because we got a good price on it.
Yeah,
and we got the price through
the speed
on good terms, and then we changed the terms.
And because the agent was pushing me to get it done on the weekend, we had the solicitor clause in there as well, so we could back out. We could renegotiate the terms for the broker as well, for the finance settlement period. So,
which is a really good thing to bring up, because through that period, I understood how each party could be a bit frustrated. Well, I wasn't frustrated because I got a good deal, right? And I extended.
A sick deal.
Yeah, I got a great deal. Thank you very much. And I extended the terms on finance and building and pest. And I knew that wasn't the greatest thing for me to do on my part of the deal. So what I did is I made sure that everybody else was happy. And so I worked with my solicitor, and then I spoke to the selling agent multiple times during the weeks of just like, I've got to do it this way. I can't do it this way. My finance person says this, my building and pest, I don't want to do it. I want to get this deal done now, but I just have to apologize. I'm super sorry. I've got the money. I want to get it done, because I did. I wanted to get it done before Christmas, and I was genuine. But I just had to basically manage those relationships so everybody was still happy that it was going to go through.
Yeah, and we had a chat about
and that's
this.
that's a good point for everybody to think about. It's like, if you are going to change terms, just be straight up front with everybody in the deal.
And I wouldn't advise going down that strategy. It was just, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about it, and given
it was the right thing,
situation,
it worked. It was the right thing for us to do. It was definitely the right.
It was cheeky.
approach.
It was cheeky, but because he was pushing, and then it was there, and the deal could be done. I was like, you know what? If it all falls out, it doesn't matter. We got another one to go on to, and we had other options. It's just that this was. There was an opportune time, so I went for it, and it worked out the way I expected, which is great. Would I do it again? Yes, I would.
Under the circumstances, like at the end of the day, he accepted it.
Yeah,
the agent accepted it, and he knew that finance was not going to get improved in that short time frame.
No.
So
he knows the deal that we're working with, and we had this discussion with the agent, but it was just good because he had. Long story, but the seller, obviously there was a situation going on the back end, and in order to get this deal through,
they wanted to sell it.
It went down this path, and it was completely fine. We had the conversation if terms needed to get changed prior to signing the contract. This is for me just disclaiming. Some people are going to be out there going, "You did what?" But there's a lot more conversation between myself, the agent, you, planning this strategy, and
the contract wouldn't have got signed unless everybody was happy at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
So
but it worked out well, and we actually
scored an absolute deal. How much equity have we built in that one? We settled 3-4 months ago, and then you saw a comparable that had an extra 50.
So we bought for $455,000, and the comparables in that street alone were around this. So there's a bit of complexities, but we break it down. There was a DHA lease over the property, and that was holding all the owner-occupiers away from it. The DHA lease had 2 years left on it.
2 years left.
And as an investor, Jaryd was looking for the cash flow. DHA have high management costs, but there's a lot more detail that people don't understand, which...
The terms on the lease with the DHA agreement are very good for the owner of the property.
Especially at the end. Like if you can find something with a DHA lease with, say, 1 or 2 years left on it, this property itself had been under that lease agreement for over 9 years. And as a result, in the lease, they state they repaint, they recarpet, and they also do the external paint and landscaping. So that alone is about $20,000 worth in work. And
we're coming in on the tail end of that lease agreement.
Yeah, and also you're getting guaranteed rent. Anything that goes wrong with the property, they pay for and they fix. So there's But anyway, the strategies within strategies. So the deal itself, $455,000.
Yeah.
The owner occupiers in that market would be paying $500 to $550 for that at that time. From what I could see, it's just that because of that lease restriction, they couldn't buy it and move in straight away.
Yeah.
So that it eradicated that market out. I saw a fantastic opportunity, and we obviously went under contract. The sellers were obviously motivated, and I obviously tracked the market, and a very comparable property with the same lease terms just went under contract for $510. So we're looking at $55,000.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But that's also in an inferior location too. So Jaryd's on a more superior owner-occupied location within that suburb. So the way I see it is that you're probably looking around that, $525 to $550 as it is. So we'll get a value to go through it. Actually, we should do that in the next purchase and see what it comes up as.
We will.
I'll be really interested actually.
So, we might even pull some equity for a larger acquisition on the next one. So that's we won't go into that too much because we did get sidetracked. But finance, there's a lot of nuances there, but basically there's speak with your broker, speak with a selling agent, and work to get it unconditional. And then
finance, it is nerve-wracking. We spoke about that at the start. So you get the deal through, you send it to your broker, they put that forward to the bank that they're going forward with, and then you have to basically sit on your hands and wait for the bank to come back to you with a letter saying we have accepted your loan application, and that's when it goes to be basically unconditional finance. So you're all approved, and then it's just doing that transaction, and your solicitor or conveyancer will help with the handover of finances and funds.
Yeah.
But before,
so they'll talk together. The bank and the solicitor talk together and work all that out, and then we'll talk about pre-settlement and stuff soon.
Yeah. So the next step for you then is, once you've got all those boxes ticked, your building pest is good, your finance has been all approved, and then you just have to wait around for settlement, however long you've negotiated that. And there is always a pre-settlement inspection where you can go into the property before it settles. At this stage, the owners have got all their stuff out, or the tenants have moved out. You can go through, and it's an important thing to do. If you can't do it yourself, obviously having a property manager on your side to go in and inspect the property if you're going to rent it out, to make sure like they're going to be looking around what needs to be done to get this up to rent.
Yes.
I don't want a headache. So
they're going to be taking photos of things that need to be,
And the reason why you do that is because often people don't leave properties the way that you expected. There might be holes in the wall. There might be, especially those the wall-mounted TVs. They take the TV off. They might leave the wall-mount thing on. It's an eyesore. It's simple stuff. You might just have to, bog and
just change a few things.
It. But if you can get them to do it, do it every day.
Yeah. Prior to settlement, you want to push for that to get done, because it should be on them.
Yeah.
You don't want to back out on a finance clause. They don't want you to back out on a quote unquote finance clause because a couple of things that need to be fixed in the property aren't up to scratch and you don't want to deal with it. You wouldn't do that, but it's something that you can use to your advantage. Also, when it comes to settlement, the solicitor will let you guys know how much the final figure that you need to have in a certain account or put into a certain account for your deposit on that. So you'll liaise with your finance broker and your solicitor to know what that final settlement amount is for that deposit, which I think is pretty important to note.
Yeah, because that just gets sucked out of your account.
Yep.
And then you get a whole new bank account with all you have negative, or you're in debt by hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, or more depending on the asset.
But the key is you're holding an asset that's appreciating in value, and you're leveraging your, call it $100,000 to control a $600,000 asset, which when it compounds and grows over time, your equity component is multiplying.
It's a really good book by George Anton called The Debt Millionaire. One of my previous business partners said go away and read that, and I suggest you guys do too. It's really, really good.
Yeah, we want to get it into the website, right? With a link.
So we'll give you guys a bunch of books on our site that we recommend to basically get you guys set up for investing in property and then also scaling a property portfolio. Books that we have read that we recommend that you should on your journey. So we'll send you a link, probably in the show notes. It'll probably be propertypals.au/books, to be honest. But the link will be in the show notes, or you'll be able to find it on the site pretty easy. So then you've got your finance settled, your pre-settlement settled. Then what?
Well, then you got a handover.
Yeah.
That's the last stage where you go in, you get the keys. If you've got a property manager who's doing that, then they pick up the keys for you. It's a fantastic service. Love property managers. But you pick up the keys, take a copy, make sure you've got multiple, keys. You don't want to give your keys to, say, a tenant, and then if they lose it, which sometimes they do, then you have to get a locksmith out. It's a pain in the ass. Anyway, the title's all changed to your name. You now own the asset. Congratulations, you've now invested or you've bought a property that not many people can do in their lifetime. So sit back and just think about what you've achieved. It's a very important part of someone's life, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Not many people do get there. So
it's an absolute game changer because you're buying something at market price and it's going to be at a very different price in the future, and you're using debt to do it, and you basically typically should be, depending on the asset you purchase and the deal terms, but you should be beating inflation and putting your money to work for you rather than you working for your money. And the larger, I shouldn't say the more properties you have, but it should be the larger the amounts or the valuation of your property portfolio, the better off you're going to be.
Yes, I'd caveat with, cash flow.
Cash flow, yes, and amount of debt as well. So we will have to talk about selling out strategies and for people that are retiring versus like aggressive growth strategies like this guy Jaryd's doing.
Yeah, but I mean, you're young, you've got that time too.
Yeah.
Compounds, and you have an aggressive acquisition phase, and then you just sit back and let it compound over time. But we're always just checking in from where your cash flow sits to make sure you can support that property.
Of course.
And you want to be able to make sure that portfolio is holding its own. Unless you've got a higher income and you want to reduce tax, but you should never invest for tax purposes.
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
And you can't retire. Or there are strategies out there where you can retire on, the equity. But in order to do that, and this is what's a fall in the strategy is.
This is another pod in itself, to be honest.
Yeah, true.
It's because it's what do they call debt recycling?
Yeah, well, you're pulling the equity out and you're using that equity to fund your lifestyle. In order to do that, you need cash flow. So if you want to retire and you have no cash flow, then you can't pull the equity out. So it's a null and void strategy. You have to sell down that asset, and then that asset becomes, you're realizing its net worth, and then that cash is now held in today's dollars. And if you're not investing that cash, then it's appreciated over time because inflation's eating away at your worth of your cash.
And some people don't understand when you take equity out is you're increasing your amount of debt.
Yeah, if you're doing so then your ability you have to service that.
Correct.
So you pull out $100,000, you had $700,000 in debt. Now you've got $800,000 in debt, so you're paying the debt on that.
Yeah, you could call it kicking the can down the road, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to wrap this one up, guys. Everybody, thank you for listening. Make sure you go and hit us up at hello@propertypals with any questions you have, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.